Hello, today I'm going to show you how to multiply decimals, but with the power of 10. So I actually took this math lesson in Envision 4.1 and I'm splitting it into 2 days. So today is the first day and we are just doing the power of 10. So I will show you how the students are to do this. They should always give you their math diary. If they don't bring it home, really encourage them to bring it home. And I wrote on here, check to see if you're multiplying or dividing. Now today you're just multiplying, but in the future there will be division. So always make sure that you're doing multiplication. Then you are going to look at the exponent. The exponent actually tells you how many place values you're moving that decimal. Move the decimal to the right. You are moving it to the right because you're multiplying and you're making your number larger. So because the powers of tens are also like 10, 100, 1,000, because you're multiplying by those numbers, your number is a greater number. So you actually need to move your decimal to the right to make that a greater number. And then you need to add zeros if needed. So I will show you quite a few examples that mimic a lot of what the students are going to see in their homework tonight. The biggest mistake I see is the students not actually moving the decimal. And I'll show you what I mean. So if you have 9.82 times 10 to the second, what you are going to do, because it's multiplying, your number is getting larger, and you're multiplying it by 10 to the second, which is the same thing as 100 because there's 2 zeros, so that's the same thing as 100. You are moving it 2 times to the right, so you're going to take your decimal and you're going to go 1, 2. Your decimal is no longer there. Your decimal is now here. So your new answer is 982 with the decimal at the end. And I always tell the students to double check. So double check. So now go back and see, okay, because it's 10 to the second, I'm going to go back to 1, 2. Yes, that is it. My decimal is in between my 9 and my 8, just like my original problem. So what you did is you took your decimal, it was right here, and I moved it 2 place values because my exponent is 2. Okay, so I'm going to keep doing a few more examples. I'm going to stay with the same number. Now it's times 10 to the first. Well, because that's an exponent of 1, that's the same thing as saying 10. You're only moving it 1 time. So now your answer is 98.2. Now I always tell the students, double check. So because my exponent was 1, I'm going to go back 1. Yep. That's correct, because my decimal is in between my 9 and my 8. I moved it 1 time. So always double check. I do tell the students to also make sure that you are rewriting the answer cleanly. Don't do this and expect that to be the answer, because a lot of times what kids do is they leave the decimal here and they put another one there. No 2 decimals, only 1 decimal, and it's actually moving along the number. And I can do 9.82. Oops, that's not an exponent. Sorry about that. Now, if I do it times 10 to the 3rd power, let me show you how that changes a little bit now. I'm going to rewrite my number just so I have more room. Now I need to move it 3 times. So you have 1, 2, 3 decimal. Your decimal has moved. A lot of the kids make that mistake and they don't actually move it. But now we have a blank here. Any blanks, you need to add zeros. That was our step 5. So my new answer is 9,820. And the students know that they can put the decimal if they want. If it's not there, it's invisible at the end. I always tell them, if I have $20, I can write just the number sign in 20. I don't necessarily have to put .00, and most people understand that. This number, you have to have the decimal because it's not at the end. This one, I tell the students, go ahead and put it there just to be on the safe side, but also understand that if there's no decimal there, that lets me know it's invisible at the end. But that means it has to really be at the end in my real answer. Now, always double check. So let's see, if I'm gonna go back 3, 1, 2, 3, and yep, it would have ended there. So always, always, always double check. Now I'm going to do some, let's see. If you have it just like this, the students should know. To the 100 power, or to the 100, so 13 thousandths times 100, that's the exact same thing as 10 to the second. And we have done that in the past. Because there are 2 zeros, so my exponent is 2. So if the students want to rewrite it, go ahead. It won't hurt anybody. Now I can do my problem. So I need to move it 2 to the right. I'm moving it to the right because I'm multiplying. My number is getting larger or greater because I'm multiplying it technically by 100. And so I'm moving it 2 to the right, 1, 2. So now I have 0, 0, 1.3. Or you can, I always suggest double check. Okay, so I need to go back to 1, 2, and yep, that's where it originally was. However, we don't necessarily have to leave the zeros in front. This is the same thing as 1.3. The students will get more comfortable with that. If they want to leave the zeros for right now, that's fine. But they don't have to leave the zeros, and it's the same thing. I just don't want them to get confused with that. So let's do a few more like that. I'm gonna keep the same number. This time I'm gonna add another 0. So now this is the same thing as 10 to the third because I have 3 zeros there. So now because my exponent is 3 and I'm multiplying, go to the right 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And my decimal's at the end now. So look at that. I went 1, 2, 3, my decimal's at the end. Now double check, go back 3. 1, 2, 3. Yes, that places me at the same spot. You can write this number. If the students want to write it like this, that's totally fine. They could just say 13 with a decimal, or they can just say 13. It's all the same thing. For example, if I said, okay, here's my $20, you don't have to put that 0 there. You can take that 0 out. You also don't even have to put your change, and people still understand that that's $20. So that's the same thing with 3 here. You could add a 0 at the end if you want, as long as you have a 1 in the tens place and a 3 in the ones place. However, I bet most students will want to write it like this because that helps them know that it's exactly right. And this is totally fine. You can have them do this until they're more comfortable. So once again, always double check. And now let's see, I'll just do 1, 0. That is the same thing as 10 to the first power because there's only 1 0. So because there's 1 0, it's 10 to the first power. So now you're just moving it 1 to the right. So you have 0, 0. Now your decimal has fully moved. I would say 2 of the biggest mistakes are the kids leave the decimal there and they're not actually moving it. So make sure that they're actually moving that decimal and they're not double checking to make sure that their answer is correct. So always go back and go, okay, I have to the 1 power, so I'm gonna go back 1, and that's where it started. Let's do one more with this number. Okay, now that's 13 thousandths times 10,000. That you can also say 10 to the fourth because there are 4 zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now with this one, I'm going to rewrite it down here just because I can already see that I'm going to need to add a 0. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. That blank represents that you need to add a 0. You have a whole new place value. So you have to put a 0 in that place value. So now your answer looks like this, or you can just say 130. But you always need to double check. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and yes, now my decimal would be between the zeros, just like my original problem. So make sure that the students are double checking. Now with this is an example of what I saw a lot of the students doing. They added the 0. They knew to add the 0, but then they kept the decimal here. So they knew that they needed to add the 0, but they kept the decimal. And I really emphasize, no, you are actually moving the decimal along the problem. So I'll do a few more examples. Let's see. So just another quick examples, 2 to the right, you have 3,796 because your invisible decimal is now at the end. Always double check, 1, 2, and yep, my decimal would have been between the 7 and the 9. So always, always, always double check. I bet that you will find most of your errors. Let's do 3. Okay. Once again, this is the same thing as 10 to the third because there's 3 zeros. So if the students want to rewrite it, they are more than welcome to rewrite it. Now you're going 3 to the right. 1, 2, 3. So my answer now is 9.7. If they want to leave the zeros, they can leave the zeros. So I hope that that was helpful for you. There are plenty of examples of this also on Khan Academy. If you look up and if you type in, multiplying decimals with power of 10, I'm sure you will find tons of examples on there that can be helpful. The biggest thing is the exponent or the number of zeros tell you how many places to move it. You're moving it to the right because it's multiplication. Make sure that the students rewrite it, or make sure that your kids are rewriting it nicely, because if they leave it like this, I don't know if you think the decimal still is there or if it's actually moved, because a lot of kids forget to move it. So make sure that they are moving the decimal to the new location and then double checking their work.